everyone, welcome to our podcast. My name is Elena.
And I'm Jack. Today, we have a very interesting topic. We are going to talk about urban culture.
Yes, but before we start, let's go over some important words we will use in our conversation.
Great idea. Here are some key words. 1. Urban, related to a city or town. For example, New York is a big urban city. 2. Culture, the way people live, including their traditions, music, and art. For example, every country has a different culture. 3. Street art, paintings or drawings on buildings and walls in a city. For example, there is a lot of street art in London. 4. Skyscraper, a very tall building in a city. For example, the Empire State Building is a famous skyscraper. 5. Public transportation, buses, trains, and subways that everyone can use. For example, many people in big cities use public transportation to go to work. 6. Nightlife, entertainment at night, like clubs, restaurants, and concerts. For example, New York City has exciting nightlife. 7. Fashion, the style of clothes people wear. For example, Paris is famous for fashion. 8. Diversity, different types of people and cultures living together. For example, big cities have a lot of diversity. 9. Slang, informal words and phrases that people use in daily speech. For example, in America, cool is a common slang word.
Now that we know these words, let's start talking about urban culture. So, Jack, what do you think urban culture is?
Urban culture is the way people live in cities. It includes everything: music, fashion, food, art, and even the way people talk. Cities are full of life, and people bring different cultures together.
Yes, and I think one of the best things about urban culture is the diversity. In a big city, you can meet people from all over the world. You can hear different languages, try new foods, and see many traditions.
Exactly. And that's why cities are so exciting. Every part of the city has something different. One street might have Italian restaurants, another might have Chinese shops, and another might have music from Africa or Latin America.
That's true, and music is a big part of urban culture. Many music styles come from cities. For example, hip-hop started in New York, and jazz became popular in New Orleans.
Yes, and in some places, you can see people playing music on the streets. Have you ever stopped to listen to a street musician?
Oh, yes, once I was walking in the city, and I heard a man playing the saxophone. He was so talented. I just stood there and listened for a while.
That's amazing. Street music is a big part of city life. And speaking of street art, have you ever seen a big mural on a building?
Yes, I have. Some street art is beautiful. It makes the city look colorful and creative. Some artists use street art to tell stories or share messages.
That's right. And sometimes street art shows the problems in society. It can be political or social. Some artists want people to think about important issues.
I love that. Art is not just in museums. It's everywhere in the city. And fashion is also a big part of urban culture. In cities, people wear different styles and trends change fast.
Yes, you can see people wearing streetwear, business suits, or traditional clothes from their country. Fashion in cities is always changing and mixing different cultures.
And nightlife is another exciting part of urban culture. In big cities, you can go out at night and find restaurants, concerts, and clubs. Some cities never sleep.
That's true. Some people work during the day and go out at night to enjoy the city. Have you ever been to a night market?
Yes, I love them. You can find delicious food, music, and sometimes even small performances.
Food is another important part of urban culture. You can eat food from different countries in big cities. Have you ever tried food from a street vendor?
Yes, once I had a taco from a street vendor, and it was amazing. Sometimes street food is better than restaurant food.
I agree. Street food is part of urban life. It's fast, delicious, and usually not expensive.
Another interesting thing about urban culture is public transportation. Many people in cities don't have cars. They take buses, trains, and subways instead.
Yes, in some cities, the subway is the fastest way to travel, but it can be very crowded.
Oh yes, I have been on a crowded subway before. It was so full that I couldn't move, but it's part of city life.
That's true, and language is also a part of urban culture. People in cities use slang words that you don't hear in small towns.
That's right. For example, in New York, people say bodega for a small shop, but in other places, people don't use that word.
Exactly. Every city has its own slang. It's fun to learn these words because they help you understand the local culture.
I agree. Urban culture is full of energy, creativity, and life. It's always changing, and that makes it so exciting.
And one of the best things about urban culture is that it's always changing. New music, new fashion, new slang, everything evolves so fast in a city.
Yes, and sometimes cities influence each other. A trend that starts in one city can spread to another. For example, hip-hop started in New York, but now it's popular all over the world.
That's a great point. And the same thing happens with food. Some dishes that were once only popular in one country are now found in big cities everywhere. Like sushi before, it was only in Japan, but now you can find sushi restaurants in almost every big city.
Yes, and tacos from Mexico or bubble tea from Taiwan, now they are everywhere. That's because cities bring cultures together. When people move to a city, they bring their traditions with them.
That's why urban culture is so unique. It's a mix of old and new, local and international. And I think that's what makes city life so exciting.
Exactly. And in some cities, you can see this mix just by walking down the street. One building might be very old, and next to it, there's a new skyscraper with glass windows. The past and the future exist side by side.
That's so true. And because cities are always growing, there's always something new being built, a new park, a new museum, or a new shopping center.
Yes, but at the same time, cities also try to keep their history alive. Some old buildings are protected so they don't get destroyed. Some neighborhoods have old streets that show how people lived many years ago.
I love that. Walking through an old street in a big city feels like traveling back in time. And sometimes you can still see people doing traditional jobs, like making handmade shoes or cooking old family recipes.
That's another special thing about urban culture. There's space for tradition and modern life at the same time.
Yes, and that's what makes cities so interesting. You can see the latest technology right next to something traditional. It's like a mix of history and the future in one place.
Exactly. And speaking of technology, cities are becoming smarter. Many big cities now use technology to make life easier, like apps for public transportation, smart traffic lights, or even electric bikes and scooters for people to rent.
That's a great point. In some places, you don't even need cash anymore. You can pay for buses, trains, or even street food with your phone. Technology is making urban life more convenient.
Yes, and with so many people living in a city, things need to be efficient. That's why public transportation is so important. Without it, cities would have too many cars, and the traffic would be terrible.
Oh, traffic is already bad in some places. Have you ever been stuck in a traffic jam for hours?
Yes, I have. It's frustrating, but that's why many people prefer to take the subway or ride a bike instead.
That's true. And walking is another great way to experience urban culture. When you walk in a city, you can see all the small details, street art, markets, musicians, and interesting shops.
Yes, and every neighborhood has its own style. Some areas are very modern, with skyscrapers and offices, while others have a more artistic vibe, with small cafes, bookstores, and vintage shops.
That's one of the best things about big cities. You can always find a place that feels right for you. Some people love the busy downtown life, and others enjoy the quiet parks or creative neighborhoods.
That's true, and parks are so important in cities. They give people a place to relax, exercise, or just enjoy nature in the middle of all the buildings.
Yes, parks are like a breath of fresh air in a busy city. People go there to jog, have picnics, or just sit and enjoy the quiet. It's nice to have green spaces in the middle of all the tall buildings.
Absolutely, and some parks are really big. Like Central Park in New York, it's like a small world inside the city, with lakes, walking paths, and even street performers.
Yes, and speaking of street performers, entertainment is a big part of urban culture. In many cities, you can see dancers, musicians, and even magicians performing on the streets.
That's true. And sometimes these street performers become famous. They start performing on the streets, and one day they are on TV or in big shows.
Yes, cities are full of opportunities. People come to cities to follow their dreams, whether in music, fashion, business, or art. That's why urban culture is always full of new ideas and creativity.
Exactly. And you can see this creativity in everything: how people dress, how they decorate their shops, and even in the food they cook. Cities are places where new trends start.
That's right. And because of social media, urban culture spreads even faster now. A small cafe with a cool design can become famous on Instagram, and suddenly people from all over the city want to visit.
Yes, and the same thing happens with fashion. One person in a city wears something unique, and soon it becomes a trend. Urban culture moves so fast.
It really does. And the best part is that it's always changing. What is popular today might be different next year, but that's what makes cities so exciting.
Yes, cities are always changing, and that's what makes urban culture so exciting. There's always something new to see, try, and experience.
Exactly. Whether it's fashion, music, food, or art, cities bring people together and create something unique. Urban culture is a mix of ideas from all over the world.
And that's why big cities feel so alive. You can hear different languages, see different styles, and taste food from every country all in one place.
Yes, and because cities are full of opportunities, many people move there to follow their dreams. Some want to start a business, become artists, or just experience something new.
That's true, and even though life in the city can be busy and fast, there's always something to enjoy, whether it's a street performance, a quiet cafe, or a beautiful park.
And let's not forget the energy of the people. The people in cities are what make urban culture so special. They bring their traditions, creativity, and ideas, and that's what makes cities so diverse and interesting.
Yes, so to summarize, urban culture is all about life in the city. It includes everything: music, food, fashion, art, language, and even the way people move and interact. It's a mix of tradition and modern life, and it's always changing.
That's right. Cities are places where cultures come together, where creativity grows, and where people share ideas. It's what makes urban life so exciting and full of possibilities.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you liked this podcast, don't forget to leave a comment, and share it with your friends and family.
Yes, and make sure to follow our channel for more interesting topics to help you learn English in a fun and natural way.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a great day.